Welcome everyone. I'm Mark Fox, CEO of NetEvents, and delighted to welcome the international press here for our session on new directions for SD-WAN. Chairing the session today, we have Scott Raynovich, founder and principal analyst at Futuriom, and Scott is also a columnist for Forbes magazine. In addition, we have Archana Khetan, head of product enterprise routing at Cisco. We have Professor Martin Curley, Director of Digital Transformation and Open Innovation at the Health Service Executive in Ireland. And we have Mark Vondemkamp, who is the VP of Product in the Service Provider and Edge Business Unit at VMware. So without further ado, Scott, over to you.
Great, thanks, Mark. And happy to have all of you here today. Look forward to an interesting discussion and some good questions from the press. So let's move on to the next slide here. I'm going to give a short presentation, basically about our findings in the SD-WAN market. Futuriom is a small independent research company, and we focus really on end user research in the cloud, communications, and infrastructure space. So anything providing the infrastructure, software, underlying networks to both cloud and enterprise. And as everybody knows, SD-WAN has been a really interesting market that I started following really about 8 years ago. I did a couple reports on a previous business I had known as the Raynovich report, and I got interested when a bunch of these venture level companies were being funded, and I said, oh, what's this SD-WAN thing? I'm going to poke around. Well, nearly 10 years later, here we have really a multi-billion-dollar market. So it's kind of exceeded many people's expectations, I think. And so Futuriom has been doing an SD-WAN growth report for about 5 years, where we project the growth and give an overview of what's driving the market. So we just released our 5th annual SD-WAN report. So let's move on and talk about some of the findings. So as I said, this is the 5th annual report. We really focus on end user surveys and interviews. We have two annual surveys, and then we interview both vendors and end users, and we collect anonymous data from the vendors about what they see in terms of growth and revenue in different segments. When we do the surveys, we filter everybody to make sure they're shopping for SD-WAN or networks and they know what it is and that they're director level or above. And then we're constantly interviewing end users. You can see some of my materials, as Mark said, on Forbes.com. We also publish a lot of ongoing interview activity on Futuriom.com, as well as various client websites. So let's move on and see what we've found so far. There's a few top level conclusions, both from the SD-WAN growth report, but also I have some material from in January. We did an SD-WAN managed services report, and they're very closely tied together. So on the next slide, the demand for SD-WAN, for those of you who don't know what SD-WAN is, software-defined wide area networking. It helps virtualize enterprise connectivity and provides many other value-added services, including application performance, security, and a number of things. And it's this kind of virtualized networking platform that has created the demand, the idea that instead of buying boxes, discrete boxes, and plugging them in and manually configuring them, you could have a software-based networking platform that could also use commercial off-the-shelf hardware or specific vendor hardware. You can plug it in, you can manage it from the cloud with software, you can add additional applications, you can switch out the links, you can connect direct to cloud services. So all this has created a lot of demand for this type of service. And as I said, when we first did this report 4 or 5 years ago, we projected it would hit a multi-billion-dollar run rate, and it has. It's now crossed the $2 billion mark. And this, what we count are the combination of the monthly, that we count anybody that's shipping SD-WAN as a monthly service, which may include a hardware component, but it has to be bundled with the service. And as many of you know, this market, this can be complicated and people sell things different way, but we're really measuring the, the monthly and annual service revenue from SD-WAN. Another thing that's happened is the whole work from anywhere, the hybrid work environments has increased security needs and virtualized security on networks. This is helping the SD-WAN market as it expands into an area known as SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge. And this is going to spur the development with service providers of additional security and value-added services that can be packaged with SD-WAN. So once you have the SD-WAN platform, you can add different security functionality, whether that's threat detection or antivirus or firewall as a service. All these security services are being bundled and integrated with SD-WAN platforms. So it's kind of becoming a Swiss Army knife, if you will, for any networking service. The other thing we keep hearing from end users comes up on pretty much any interview that I do, is that they like the flexibility and the management of SD-WAN. They can log onto a portal, whether that's the vendor's, interface software, cloud-based interface, and orchestrate and set up templates to manage hundreds of branches if they want, or if a service provider is providing the service, there's a co-portal, they can manage the devices, they can even manage the services in real time. And really that's kind of the cloud consumption model, as we call it, just like you buy Salesforce or MailChimp or Office 365 from the cloud, you can now manage and buy your network services from the cloud, which is really quite revolutionary. SD-WAN is starting to extend into multi-cloud, so connecting to, fabrics from co-location facilities like Digital Realty or Equinix, or connecting to the WAN services offered by the large cloud providers like Amazon and Azure. And we're also seeing the integration with enterprise branch wireless, to leverage 5G and Wi-Fi 6 and kind of have a seamless branch that can do everything: SD-WAN, 5G, Wi-Fi connectivity on a secure connection. So those are the top trends in the market. So as we can continue to the next slide. When we surveyed some folks, we asked them if SD-WAN is going to grow as part of a strategy to find alternatives to leased or private lines. And you can see overwhelming 90.8% of the respondents say yes. So really what's happening here is the last generation of WAN was really dominated by a technology known as MPLS. And MPLS is often delivered kind of in a proprietary way, both from the service providers and the vendors. They're locked into a long-term contract. It can be expensive. They can't switch it out. And what the end users have told us over the years is they want to migrate away from this or have alternatives. So they might not necessarily rip out all their MPLS, but they want to start using things like private internet transit, which are growing in popularity and really efficacy, performance. Private internet is really a viable alternative now. So you can SD-WAN to kind of toggle between these connections, if you will, or pair them up or manage them together. And so that's really been a key factor in the early days of SD-WAN. And it's growing now as SD-WAN expands and offers security functionality. There's just all sorts of options. So as we move to the next slide, another key theme I highlighted was that the pandemic environment last year really drove awareness of people's digital network strategy. Like, how are we going to manage networks virtually? How are we going to set up different networks? How are we going to move them around more quickly? SD-WAN plays directly into this. And I'm sure, as you read in the business technology press, the everybody's kind of taking a second look at their digitization and their digital transformation strategies and really accelerating them. And that's kind of reflected in this survey when there's more of an emphasis on finding secure remote connectivity. 88% of the end users said that. So let's talk about the next slide. Again, key takeaways here. SD-WAN is seen as a valuable way to manage many enterprise cloud networking functions with the simplicity of software from the cloud. That's really the key value there. SD-WAN platforms are becoming strategic for delivering pretty much any network function, multi-cloud networking, SASE, cloud security, application visibility and control. Many of these things were packaged as discrete boxes and or applications in the past. And now, when you go to an SD-WAN platform, sometimes all these functions are available. On the next slide, a couple more takeaways. We really see SD-WAN as becoming part of a larger work from anywhere initiative. And it's part of digital transformation strategy to provide more efficient remote user experience, security, application control, and collaboration. This is going to contribute to the growth. Many of the SD-WAN vendors kind of broke out additional remote access products, either with a client or without a client, or things with software that tie into the SD-WAN platform. But think of it this way: it's a virtualized way to control a network from the cloud. Okay, this person's going to move over here. We're going to move, the network's going to follow them. They're going to have secure access to the corporate applications. We can control the policy and what they're accessing wherever they go, whichever network they're attached to. Very flexible. Okay, and finally, on the next slide, our revenue. This just kind of shows you the impact that the SD-WAN market has had. It's, as I said, when I first started tracking it, it was a tiny market that a lot of people didn't really track. Of course, the two of the folks on our panel here, Cisco and VMware, made quite large acquisitions in the space. Cisco acquired Viptela, of course, and VMware acquired VeloCloud, both in 2017. Once this market started ramping up, and now it's starting to get mature, and the market is consolidating. HPE bought Silver Peak last year. Palo Alto bought CloudGenix. So you see the traditional networking and security vendors kind of integrating their tools with SD-WAN as an interesting platform going forward. So with that, that's the kind of the background of the market. Let's go to our panelists, and we're going to have a discussion. I'll let the panelists each introduce themselves real quickly. Also fortunate to have Martin here, who's an end user, who can give us that shopper and buyer perspective. But why don't you each tell a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in the SD-WAN market?
Thank you, Scott. Let me go first, since it looks like my name is next in line. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Archana Khetan, and I head the product management team for the enterprise routing portfolio at Cisco. It's really exciting and a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation to be on this show today. Just a little bit background about myself. I joined the industry in the early to mid 90s. This was at a time when internet was still new to most companies. They were still figuring out how to use internet for their business advantage. We still had mainframes in most data centers. The WAN connectivity was still transitioning from a circuit to a packet switch network. And then the security most commonly was a list of ACLs on a Cisco router if a customer had deployed, internet connection. And in the last 2.5 decades, I have run product management for networking, security, and compute space. So from that perspective, I've had the benefit of looking at the journey for each of the three spaces: network, compute, network applications, and security. And it's amazing to see how far these journeys have come together. I joined Cisco in late 2019 in the routing BE. And this is my second stint at Cisco. Before this, from 2012 to 2014, I was also in the data center team running the portfolio strategy and planning across all of the then data center products, including compute, virtualization, and data center networking. And what is really unique about the WAN edge space right now, which is really exciting for me and my journey so far, is that even though the three different infrastructure domains have sort of been influenced by each other, for the most part, they have been evolving in their own lanes, in their own silos. And I think right now, the way industry is evolving, they both have to work much more closely together. So I think from a portfolio perspective, really the interplay of how network security and applications work closely together to give users the ultimate user experience is really the holy grail that we are targeting within our organizations. So look forward to the rest of the panel, and I'll pass it on to Martin.
Great, thanks, Archana. Thanks, Scott, for the very helpful analysis. So my name is Martin Curley. I'm a longtime tech executive. I was a VP at Intel running European R&D, and more recently I was an SVP at MasterCard running their global digital practice. But about 3 years ago, I took on the challenge of joining the HSE, which is the equivalent of the NHS in the UK, and driving a digital transformation. We have a very ambitious agenda to transform from being a laggard in Europe on digital health to be the leader by 2025. And in the last year, particularly in response to COVID, we've been able to actually develop a number of different platforms, for example, around vital signs automation or remote monitoring of COVID-19 and respiratory conditions and so on, that have proved very useful. So we've been able to reinvent and actually move from a waterfall delivery type model to a very agile and iterative process. Underpinning the future or the vision of becoming a European leader in digital health will be our network. We have a complex distributed environment with about 3,000 different facilities located on the island of Ireland. And we're at the early stages of exploring the possibilities of using SD-WAN to transform our network. And the vista ahead of us looks really exciting. And the transformation of our network should run in parallel with the transformation of our digital solutions portfolio. So I'm glad to be joining you today. I look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Mark?
All right. Hello, everybody. Mark Vondemkamp. I lead the product for the service provider and edge business unit here at VMware. My background started as an engineer, actually a long time ago. I've got to see quite a bit of transformation in the marketplace, appliances to virtual machines, now containers, and now these cloud delivered solutions. I spent most of my time focusing on the data, the security stack, although I have had periods of time where I've actually owned WAN optimization products. I guess through a startup that I was in, I transferred over from engineering to product. I've been on the product side for, I guess, almost 20 years now. And here again, I'm involved in both small companies from scratch and larger companies trying to drive new businesses and initiatives. So look forward to today's conversation and with my colleagues on the panel here.
Great, thanks. So let's go to the first question, and I'll start in the order we started, and then we'll reverse it for the next question. But so Archana can respond first. But I talked a little bit about the impact of the pandemic and remote work and how basically the world has completely changed. At least the business world has changed in the last year. How have you adopted your strategy in respond to the accelerated digitization and these trends such as work from anywhere?
Certainly, Scott. So even before the pandemic hit, we were already thinking about network edge and secure access to applications in a fairly fundamental way, in the way that we always defined our SD-WAN strategy to be able to provide connectivity to any user irrespective of its location, to any application, whether it be cloud, hybrid cloud, or multi-cloud, and across any type of transport or services. So when the pandemic really made a bigger use case for a user working from home, we already had the solution from a technology perspective available to us. And for us, it was mainly about packaging the solution and creating an offer in the market that could have been very easily consumed. And we did that, in a fairly short manner. But if I look at the market in the way it has evolved over the last 1+ year, I would say in the very early phases of the journey, most of our customers were basically reacting to their business need because the pandemic came to them unplanned, surprised. And so what we really saw was customers beefing up on whatever teleworker solutions they had already adopted in the market. And if you look at most of the teleworker deployments pre-pandemic, most of them really were designed, I would say for the most part, 10+ years ago, in a world where most of the applications were still residing in the data center. And most of the teleworker solutions deployed in the industry were really working on a paradigm that I need to tunnel the traffic all the way back to a data center or some corporate location where presumably the applications were located. And most often the users came to us from two different asks. One was better user experience, a better experience that allowed for the flexibility to divert traffic based upon where the application is actually placed. And as we know, this is exactly what the value prop of SD-WAN has been, which has been in the cloud-centric world. And then the second issue we also saw was from IT side, which was about the teleworker solutions provided automation and zero-day provisioning at scale, but they really lacked the service assurance and observability that was really needed to troubleshoot problems. And when you have a portion of your remote employees working evening hours, those experiences are acceptable to IT and users. But when you have pretty much your entire workforce doing the critical business, work from home, this becomes very unacceptable. So it took us a fair amount of time, I would say, to spend the time with our customers, both enterprise and SPs, in terms of explaining the evolving market landscape and how the teleworker solutions need to evolve. And what we are seeing now is that as companies are coming back to work with respect to planning what the workforce strategy needs to be, the one thing which is emerging is the concept of the hybrid workplace, which means more and more companies are looking at their employees returning to work, but not necessarily in a full-time manner, but giving them the flexibility to shift between on-prem in the office or work from anywhere kind of concept. So what we do see is that customers do want to have a teleworker or a hybrid workforce, a work from anywhere solution that can seamlessly move across independent of where the user is situated, which means that they want to have the same solution, the same technology, the same policy set, for managing the user and the connectivity needs irrespective of the location. So suffice it to say that the SD-WAN solution that we have, which is an extension of our branch offering, includes both the teleworker and the branch solution to address the wide variety of needs.
Excellent. Let's hear a little bit from Martin, because thanks, Archana. Let's hear the end user perspective, since Martin, as I understand it, you're just looking at this technology, correct, Martin? You haven't deployed it. So as the pandemic kind of accelerated the urgency here?
Most definitely, and I think we've all heard the expression, necessity is the mother of invention. And we have really changed our approach from a waterfall method of delivery to an agile iterative process. So for example, in the very early days of COVID hitting our shores here in Ireland, we quickly prototyped a solution that would allow us to remotely manage COVID-19 patients in their home and provide the same or equivalent service. And currently we have more patients being remotely monitored in their homes than there are in acute hospitals. So that was a really big success. And normally to deploy a solution like that would take sort of 2 to 3 years based on previous projects that have been deployed. But we were able to go from a concept to deployment across 30 acute centers in Ireland in just 5 weeks. So agility, was really enabled and specifically driven by the need. And I'll talk about the network impact in a second, but another technology that we deployed is a technology called RespiraSense, and this automatically wirelessly transmits the respiration rate of a patient who has COVID symptoms or just a general respiratory patients. And we've deployed this currently in 16 hospitals, heading towards 25 in the next month or two. And Ireland will be the first country in the world which will deliver automated respiration rate measurement as a standard of care. Currently, that is available in ICU in most hospitals, but not available in regular wards. So we have deployed this technology. We deployed a technology called Blue Eye from RedZync very quickly in the first weeks of the technology of the pandemic. And this is a secure video conferencing solution that uses text messages to distribute the conference to the patient. The patient just clicks on the text message and up pops a secure video conferencing service. We've been deploying technology, vital signs automation into our acute hospitals. We've been experimenting with autonomous robotics or robots that desanitize and kill COVID in our wards. And I could give you 5 or 6 other examples. But the net output of this transformation is that we've got much better services, much more agile services, but we have completely new network requirements. So it really behoves us now to think about our network redesign. We can't just think about the 3,000 locations, be they hospitals or primary care centers. We have to think of everybody's home as being a hospital at home. So for example, we have a virtual respiratory ward where we have 850 patients with chronic respiratory conditions being monitored from home, and they're getting equivalent services if they were in a hospital. So this changes the way the healthcare system works, but it also has a significant impact on how the network is managed. And therein is the opportunity to look at a redesign and a transformation using SD-WAN.
Oh, that's great. I have some questions about the security aspect, but we'll come back to that because I know healthcare has specific security requirements. But
Sure.
Really interesting stuff and fits kind of into the trends I talked about. Mark, tell us about VMware has an interesting perspective because you work closely with both enterprises and service providers. So tell us what you've been seeing in your strategy and how you're responding to end user demand.
Yeah, so like Cisco, we had technology that lent itself to this work from anywhere, work from home trend. We've been selling solutions to, for example, like insurance agents, where you basically have an office of one, and work from home has basically turned into that. So we have looked at and introduced new offerings. So we have some new subscription-based offerings that, from a price performance point, make it much more appealing. We've had to go back and look at hardware and software features in our roadmap. Clearly, work from home has unique requirements, especially with respect to privacy. We've accelerated the offerings in our secure SASE strategy. So we've offered ZTNA, our secure access solution, basically provides another on-ramp to the network. We've offered a new cloud web security solution to help protect our users from threats on the internet, help protect enterprises from the misappropriation of data. We've taken a solution that we call our enterprise network intelligence, which was the result of an acquisition we did back in January last year, accelerated that integration into our platform. And that solution actually gives us really good insight into the home. There's 2 types of connectivity that you really care about. There's obviously the connection to the internet, but there's also the Wi-Fi connection. So we can help enterprises deliver better services to their end users by giving them that type of insight. And then lastly, I would say, as a company, we've taken parts of our portfolio and brought them together as solutions. So this year we announced our Anywhere Workspace solution, which is a combination of our Carbon Black EDR solution, our Workspace ONE endpoint management solution, and then obviously our SD-WAN SASE platform. So yeah, the pandemic has definitely impacted our strategy, and we've done some different things to react to that.
Excellent. Yeah, I certainly hear, as an analyst, I hear about SASE every day now, as well as Zero Trust Network Access. And just a shameless plug, we happen to be coming out with our Zero Trust Network Access report this month, end of this month. And thank you, Mark, as VMware is a sponsor of that. But on to the next question. Let's talk about some of the drivers that we discussed. I think Martin went over a bunch of them, which is great because he reinforced the things we hear from the end users in our surveys. Things like agility, being able to manage multiple branches with software, possibly not dealing with CLIs anymore. Agility, ability to respond to your constituents' needs more quickly. But tell us, did I miss any drivers, or what are the themes you hear the most about in the market? Let me go, I'll start with Martin and then go to Mark and Arach next.
Yeah, Scott, I think you've summarized them quite well. It's about agility, it's about cost, it's about performance, and it's about security. And arguably, when you line them all up, you have kind of a perfect storm. I think IT is always challenged with transforming itself, but never actually really delivers. You've heard the expression, the IT, or the cobbler's children have the worst shoes. And I think IT has promised much in terms of transforming the business, but is quite slow in transforming itself. And the transition to SD-WAN would be a visible manifestation of that. So I think just the increasing demands, and for us in the HSE in Ireland, the potential that every citizen in Ireland potentially could be attached to our network is a real driver. So, volume and variety. We've deployed a living lab methodology in Ireland, and we have about 40 living labs where we're testing new technologies in situ. But one of the projects that we're looking at is we're taking one of the islands off the west coast of Ireland called Clare Island, and we want to make it a digital health island. And we want to be able to proactively monitor every islander so that they have actually the best health possible. And we change the orientation of the system from being reactive and trying to make sick people well to actually keeping well people well. And we're going to have a lot more monitoring, a lot more devices involved. So we'll do this proof of concept on a small scale. And if it's successful, then we'll try and start scaling it across the country. And this will change the characteristics of our network. So we could have 5 million citizens being part of our network, as well as the 3,000 different buildings, as well as lots of service providers and so on. So I think there's a seismic change coming, and as well as the traditional things that we discussed about actually volume of connections, I think is going to be an important variable.
Excellent. Mark, let's hear from you. Additional inputs from both the enterprise and the service provider side. What are the top drivers you hear?
Yeah, so definitely agree with the drivers that you mentioned earlier. COVID has definitely caused our customers and our partners to look at the way they're delivering services to their end users. I would say, one of the things that we have learned is that customers definitely start from different origins. They have, different solutions in place. So as they look at transformation, they're not wanting to necessarily rip and replace. They basically need a platform that gives them a roadmap to evolve over time. That may be simply by staying with some of the vendors that they have already. It may be looking at services that can be offered in a more of a tightly integrated fashion. But the net is customers that they want a platform, and they want that ability to roll out a roadmap. Customers are also telling us, hey, I need the same services in the home that I'm able to offer in the office. I need to be able to leverage, you mentioned earlier, those zero trust principles in the home. So what's the identity? What context can I collect about that device, that end user, the way that they're accessing applications on the internet? How do I give them risk-based access, as an example? So seeing a lot of interest in zero trust principles and how our solution beholds to those. How do I easily connect to different clouds? I want automation. I need security. I need the intelligence to do this efficiently. That's another big topic area. And then from a service provider standpoint, with here again, this transformation that's taking place, ultimately they're coming back to us and asking us, help me offer more value to my customers in your platform. So, make it easier for me to roll out and expand with my install base of customers, and bring them more of this value that helps those customers transform.
Excellent. That's a good overview. Archana, let's hear from you what you're seeing at Cisco.
Yeah, no, certainly, Scott. I think you captured most of the value drivers, that we have seen in the market. There is one area I would highlight, which is also growing up in voices from both enterprise and SD customers as an emerging need, and that is an ask around better visibility and observability of the environment. So if you look at the networks of today, cloud is the new data center, your internet is the new network, your applications are consumed as a service across one of multiple cloud providers or data centers, and then your edge is anywhere the employee is. So as you can imagine, if you're an IT ops person, you are challenged to deliver not only a consistent, reliable user experience, but you lack the necessary tools to quickly isolate a problem and really be able to work across these different boundaries of different players into the connectivity space to be able to provide value to your user. So one consistent ask we do see from all the segments is the need for observability of the environment, both from the network perspective and the application perspective, and be able to provide that view across the different facets of the entire technology stack. So some of you may be familiar that we had acquired ThousandEyes last year. And one consistent ask in every EBC, every customer has been, when does ThousandEyes get integrated to get us the tools that we really need? And I would say we did announce the integration of the TE capability, which gives customers a very important piece of the equation right now. So that is something we see a lot. And I think from an SP perspective, I would emphasize 5G continues to be an important point for them in terms of growing their value prop within the enterprise or customer environments. And 5G, we know all the benefits of 5G from, ultra low speed, ultra low latency, high bandwidth. But the most fundamentally, 5G has the same constructs as SD-WAN in terms of separation of data and control plane. And we have already embarked on a 5G's journey as a result, offering last mile solutions that leveraging 5G. And this allows SD-WAN solutions to use 5G as a primary link or a backup link, depending upon the customer environment. So I do think that is an important pressing point for the SPs as well these days.
Excellent. So we got one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll go to the next question for the discussion. Really, what do you think is going to happen with this SASE thing? I hear about it every day, and as an analyst, we have to grapple with these marketing buzzwords. But as we define SASE, it's really a collection of security functions at the edge that are going to be, in many cases, integrated with SD-WAN platforms or delivered as part of them. Do you see them as different markets, the same markets? Let's start with Mark, because I know VMware has a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of products in this space. So how do you define these markets? Are they just different tools? Are they the same group? You sell them as the same market?
Yeah, so we look at data. I'm sure, like everybody else, from multiple sources. I think everybody pretty much believes SASE and that the different components of SASE are growing. So when we look at SASE, I think right now we're primarily looking at SD-WAN. We're looking at ZTNA. We're looking at next gen SWG, and then we also are looking at cloud firewall. So we think those are kind of the foundational components of SASE. We in our strategy are also looking at extending our platform to deliver other high value services like edge compute. Archana talked about 5G, and those are certainly elements that we will extend off of our SASE platform over time. So, I think the market is merging, although we'll look at each component probably separately. Each one of these components are growing pretty significantly. I mean, all you got to do is really look at the value on some of the public companies in this space, and you can see the multiples and that are being put on these types of solutions. So definitely emerging market and growing.
Excellent. Well, Martin, what about your perspective? I mean, end users, IT directors get hammered with these marketing buzzwords and magic quadrants. Does that mean anything to you, or are you just looking for specific functionality?
Yeah, I remember at Intel, actually, we thought we emitted more hype than Hollywood. So there is a lot of sort of new terminology and buzzwords, but I think the end user isn't looking for two separated products here. I think ideally we'd very much want SASE as an integrated part of an SD-WAN, so we don't have to do two separate procurements. And I think the more integrated security is into the SD-WAN, the better, and couple that with zero trust approaches. I think you probably get the best of both worlds. So less hype, more delivery, I think would be the message from the end users, and showing proven implementations with proven business cases. Obviously, the promise for SD-WAN is actually we could do a lot better in terms of improved performance and improved security, but at significantly less cost. So replacing those very expensive lease lines with cheap internet access at remote sites, really creates the opportunity for reduction in costs. So this transition actually could be self-funding, and even more than self-funding. We may be able to deliver a lot more for a lot less, and that's the promise. But it doesn't make sense to have kind of separate security and SD-WAN architectures, or SASE has to be an integrated part of SD-WAN.
Okay, that's really interesting. Archana, does Cisco see this? Are you going to integrate your products? One of the hits on Cisco is they buy hundreds of companies, but the integration sometimes doesn't go as fast as the end users would like.
Yeah, no, so I would say I will give two views, one addressing Martin's need and one addressing needs of some other customer segments as well. So we certainly see the promise of SASE and the required desire for tighter integration between the network and security realms. And as you know, Cisco has invested in both the SD-WAN and security space for a number of years, both organically and with acquisitions, as you referred to, Scott, below. And earlier this year, we did make an announcement, Martin, for customers' ability to purchase the entire Cisco portfolio across SD-WAN networking, both Meraki and Viptela, across cloud security with our umbrella solution and all its pieces and the roadmap which we are building upon further, as well as a zero trust network access with our Duo solution. So for a customer who is interested in a one-stop shop, then we do have that offer today for the market. But we do also have pockets of customers who have deployed their own security solutions in the past, or they may have deployed network solutions in the past, although less so, and they want to have an integration across multiple vendors. So we also have a lot of deployments with third-party solutions like Zscaler. We also have API level integrations, with solutions where customers do want to have the seamless experience, but across multiple vendors. And then I think from an IT perspective, one of the emerging trends we do see is the tighter integration of NetOps and SecOps. And I think with that view, whether customer chooses the one-stop shop that Cisco has, which we of course would prefer, or if you're in the other camp where you do want to have your existing vendors working with Cisco solutions, we are working towards both of those angles right now.
Excellent. So I'll have everybody just give like a 2-second wrap. I'll start with Martin, and then I'll go to Mark and then Archana. Just give a 2-second wrap of the value of SD-WAN and where you think it's going to go.
I think our world has changed, and COVID has changed so many aspects of our society, and in general, it's work from anywhere. But specifically in digital health, the potential is there that we can have a hospital at home delivering the same service, better quality of life, lower cost, service in a person's home, and that fundamentally transforms actually how we look at health networks. And Victor Hugo used to say, there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come, and I think we're really on the cusp of something significant with SD-WAN. And it will allow us to re-architect our networks and hopefully optimize cost, performance, security, and agility. So I think it's overnight success takes on average 10 years, and I think SD-WAN is quite close to a tipping point. So I think it'll be very exciting over the next couple of years.
That's very interesting. Just like to interject real quickly, that's why I like to focus on, talking to the end users, because if you talk to the vendor community exclusively, a lot of them will tell you, oh, SD-WAN, it's been done. Now we're moving on to SASE or whatever the next big thing is. But to Martin's point is, it's sometimes these big technology transformations are painful and take a lot of work and a lot of time, and you can't just say, oh, in 2 years the market we finished. I mean, I think SD-WAN is probably in the middle of the transformation here. It has a lot of legs going forward. But that's just an analyst opinion. Mark, what do you think? Let's hear your summary of where it's all going.
Yeah, I think the next 3 to 5 years are going to be really interesting for customers and providers in the market. I think customers, they really need to drill into day 0, day 1, day 2 sort of capabilities in the product. I think those sorts of capabilities will help differentiate the types of solutions and the level of integration in those solutions. Vendors are going to have to be at the top of their game. It's a big market. It's a growing market. Really big players. We all want a piece of that pie, and the only way that we'll be able to really get that is by delivering that value. So, from a VMware perspective, it's really about delivering value to our customers, solving problems, and making sure that we have happy customers.
Excellent. Archana, your final thoughts on where this market is going?
Yeah, Scott, I would say I will go back to the fundamentals, which is where is the applications heading and where are the users heading? And so based on that, how should SD-WAN and SASE head? If I look at the application perspective, we know that, a lot of new cloud native apps are coming around because of digitalization initiatives. And of course, many of the current software providers such as Microsoft are also moving to SaaS and cloud native apps. But that doesn't mean the entire customer business application landscape is changing. So if you're talking next 2 to 5 years, hybrid workloads are here to stay. And similarly, when we look at the users, the hybrid workforce is going to stay, hybrid being a big combination of work from anywhere as part of the work from home and work from office. So I think if you look at these constructs, the two things which jump to me are agility, in fact, 3 things: agility, visibility, and doing things at scale with simplicity. So I think I agree with you. SD-WAN market is still in its transition phase, just as cloud is in a transition phase. And we will continue to see growth and momentum there. And the security paradigms are going to transform. And there is going to be a tighter integration between network and security, but not just network and security. In fact, I would say tighter integration with the application itself. So that can the applications share intent about how they want their experience and sharing their requirements with the network. I think that is going to be the next holy grail after this. But irrespective, exciting times ahead for all of us vendors. And hopefully we will have some exciting solutions for Martin and our customers in the coming years.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, I just wrap it up. That was a great panel, lots of input. Very fortunate to have Martin add, the end user perspective to the insightful commentary from Archana and Mark as well. So thank you to all the panelists for participating. As a reminder, there's a section where you can gain access materials from this event, including our full SD-WAN growth report offered free to customers. So check it out. I'm working more in this space, like I said, in Zero Trust this month, multi-cloud networking in September, and SASE in October. So the full plate of buzzwords coming your way, and we try to make sense of all this. And I look forward to joining future NetEvents panels as well.